Okay, so we have been thinking a lot about what is evidence based these days. And I think, especially this year, there's been so many changes with more people using AI, more problematic diet trends. All sorts of things have come up, and we certainly get people all the time that understandably, it's gotten harder to differentiate between what is actually research and what is actually a citation. I'm thinking even today we had our Q&A with some of our patients, and someone brought up a topic that, it's from what looks like a reputable source from the outside, and it even has clickable links to the actual research. But then when you click the actual links, it turns out to be just essentially an opinion piece. And anybody can submit their thoughts on different things onto these websites where research is also found. And it can be hard these days to distinguish between what's valuable info and what's not. So I thought we would talk about it.
Yeah, I think this is so challenging. And I mean, obviously any, reputable person with a PhD or some higher education that's doing a lot of research, we all have to go through professional ethics as our introduction into the PhD coursework. That's part of our education. And you learn about all the pitfalls and all the ways that, you can be kind of swayed into inaccurate or inappropriate reporting and things like that, and all the repercussions that can happen. But really, ultimately, that's in the hands of the person who's choosing to do the research. And like, that's one part of it. And having reputable, like actual reputable research and things like that. But then on the other hand, we're also having to deal with the world of AI. And AI is meant and built to do what it's meant to please you. Like, it's meant to, whatever you ask it to do, it's going to spit out information. And if it doesn't know, then it's going to fabricate it. It's going to make up citations. Like, we saw this with RFK and his whole thing that he proposed and sent out. There were fabricated citations within that document, that were AI driven. And that's so scary, because I think we get so inundated, especially in social media, we get inundated with all this information. And then we have PMIDs at the bottom. And I think we're kind of blocking those out in a sense. Like, we're saying, oh, they're there. I'm not fact checking that. Like, okay, great. They did the work for me. Those could totally be fabricated. Like, we really need, as like, especially us as providers, but even as lay people, we really have to learn to have a critical eye on and critically assess what we're allowing ourselves to take in as information.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, Krista, you're in an interesting position this year because as all this is going on, you're starting your PhD, which is really exciting, and you're also teaching. You're still teaching,
Yep.
and you're getting to teach a course on this topic, right? Is
Yeah,
that
we're studying current issues and trends tomorrow. And yeah, that's where, I mean, it's in the undergraduate school, but I think it's so necessary. And I'm taking it really seriously, because I think this is something that we're all going to have to get really good at. Like, we're going to have to really get good at critically assessing. And that's what the course is all about, is looking at authority and, who are we trusting, and what is the literature actually saying? How can we kind of put this up against the more global literature that we've had for 50 years, and what is this too good to be true, and like, how are we assessing all of it? That'll be really interesting. And then I'm taking a similar course in my PhD work at the same time, so it'll be interesting as I'm kind of like navigating both.
you're learning and teaching at the same time?
Yeah, which is the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like as providers too, we're also learning very fast how the landscape is changing. It's changing a lot because people are understandably, like, with a new technology that makes your life easier, you want to use more of it, and I think there's good in that. And I also think there, because of how fast it's changing, that does have ripple effects that can be harmful. And I've definitely seen that even before the last 2 years, like in the last, looking in the last 5 to 7 years, changes even in the writing world, like with
Mhm.
how as AI has become more big, how people are shifting. Like let's say, think about Healthline or
Yeah.
health, some of those sites that do lots and lots of articles on good topics that are medically reviewed, because they're aware that people are using more of AI, they start to pay their writers less. Like there's been a sharp decrease in that because they know people are relying on it. But then the side effect of that too is like then the writers are going to rely on AI more because they're not paid
Not
less,
getting
right?
paid. Yeah.
So there's definitely more of a margin of error that's possible, and it changes what kind of materials we get. You could certainly use AI and be a really good fact checker, and still it can be a good thing. It can also be problematic, especially if you look at like the blog world. The blog world is where I think we're going to see it the most. Like places that look reputable, like the one we saw today on the Q&A, like it would seem like the name of the website, the look of the website looks reputable, but is it really? Is the question when you look at it critically.
Yeah.
It's so, yeah.
I think something to be mindful of too, and let me know if you two are on board with this line of thought as well, but there are good dietitians and there are bad dietitians, and there are good doctors and there are not so great doctors, right? So if there's someone who's sticking out like a sore thumb in their respective um, healthcare capacity, really like question that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why are they sticking out that much? Is what they have to say actually rooted in science? What are their qualifications to back themselves up? And there's just so much to think about there and to question.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I agree with you, and I think I understand. I want to know what you guys think too, but why that's so attractive. I think right now, like the people who stand out and are thinking different, I think it's because people want something different. They've lost trust. And I think they've lost trust in the healthcare system as a whole. But it's kind of one of those things. I think if we look at providers and your doctors and your dietitians and the people within the system, there's a lot of people in the system that really are working hard for their patients and doing their best and trying to make a crappy system work. But at this, in the, fighting against insurance companies, trying to advocate. But the system is a tough system to work within. And so I think the side effect is a mistrust across the board. It's almost like the system isn't working. People have mistrust across the board with all of it, like just throw it all out kind of mentality. And I think we see that. The person that comes to mind that's been in the media a lot lately is Dr. Porter. Have you seen that in Austin? How she's been fighting against insurance because insurance stopped covering this breast
Mhm. I think I did.
procedure for breast cancer patients, some surgical procedure,
Mm.
and insurance just will blatantly not cover it in the middle of a surgery or like just ridiculous stuff. And in calling them out, it affected her practice where she can't take that insurance. So there's these big legal battles that are actually taking place, and you can really see how much providers they really go at bat for their patients, and they care. You really started to see that lately.
Yeah, it's wild to me, honestly, because you're right, it is so broken a lot of the time, but we're forced to work it, we're forced to navigate it and to like do our best within it. I think it'll be interesting just even considering, political landscapes and how that will kind of ebb and flow and shift over time and how that impacts public perception and public trust. And I think we'll probably be pretty divided. I don't think there's really going to be a sense of like camaraderie like within that, but it's still like we all have to navigate this
Yeah.
in that to some degree.
Yeah, it's interesting because in even though we as a practice don't take insurance, we still deal with these problems because we advocate for our patients and we try to get them help, and we're always trying to coordinate care and all of that, like we still have to interact with it, even though we're not in a contract with these insurance companies.
And we're patients ourselves. Like we're,
Yeah.
we're dealing with our own insurances and like trying to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah. Danielle, how is this hearing all of this? Because you're coming at it from the Canadian side.
I know. And like, hey, our healthcare system has its downsides as well, but it's not quite like the American side of things. When I first started this job, I to be honest with you, I didn't know a lot about how the American healthcare system worked. I still don't know a lot about it, but I do know more now, and it's just unbelievable some of the things that are required or have to happen. And this next little bit that I'm going to talk about takes place in Canada as well, but just the anxiety that can come about when someone is told they need to switch medications because their insurance company won't cover it anymore. Right? That doesn't make a person with gut issues feel good at all, or like, anyone feel good, but it's unfortunate that that's part of the picture.
It is. Or dictating like how often, like if your disease process requires more frequent infusions or whatever.
Right.
And like why does an insurance company have the authority to say no? Or we're not going to authorize whatever. Like that just is crazy to me. Similar to what you were talking about. Yeah. Like how you were talking about Ashley with that other doctor.
I was talking to one of our previous patients the other day about, he was telling me about that. Like we were just talking about how weird it is, like that the insurance can do that. And I told him about, I was talking about how this happened to me with my colonoscopy meds, like where they just said they're not covered. And I literally called them up and I said, what do you mean? Like, do you think I do it for fun? Like, I'm not doing a colonoscopy for fun. I'm not like taking these meds for fun. It's just, it's really strange. Really a strange system.
Strange. Yeah.
You mean like the laxatives aren't covered or the actual medication to put you under?
The laxatives, like Sutab.
They're not covered up here either.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I don't remember what I don't remember last time what it happened. It's quite a bit out of pocket at the end of the day for me, but
yeah. We're doing it for, not only to check in on our disease, but to help with prevention. And it's like, why is that part not considered? Because this could prevent further costs down the line.
Yeah.
So exactly. I don't understand that piece.
I don't either.
Yeah. I wonder too, like how do we regain that trust, or how do we even navigate with AI present and with all the different levels of research and all, like, how do we navigate that? Or how can people as patients do that? Because I'm, just looking at all the different stuff that's out there, it's kind of, it can be tricky sometimes. And I'm thinking about all the latest trends that, now, even if you do research, I think there's even skepticism about research, right? There's a lot of skepticism about that.
I know. Even in this professional ethics course that I just finished up, they were like, obviously you're studying all this stuff and you're trying to like figure out your footing and where you land and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of scary thinking it's the individual's character and their ethics and like their morals that you're relying on. It's my responsibility to hold myself accountable to high standards and make sure I'm practicing and working ethically, researching ethically, and setting my own standards. So in hopes that will like inspire others. And, if I lead or however, whatever, but it is kind of scary thinking that a lot of us rely on other people's character and morals and ethics too, like as a society. Like that's scary.
So I guess on that topic, what would we do as patients? Like if you feel the ick from a provider, run away.
like advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I always want to understand, and I really like when patients ask me this too. Oh, but why would you recommend that? Like what does that supplement do? Why would you recommend this over that or this dosing, right? To discuss that. So I guess, yeah, as a patient, always ask about what your practitioner is recommending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And are there downsides? That's
Yeah.
another question. Is there any downsides to this? Is there anything that should consider?
Yeah.
I think that's another good question to ask. And I think that tells you a lot about somebody too. If you can ask questions and how they respond to questions, like, are they open to questions? Do they get excited about your questions, or do they dismiss you? I mean, they're excited about it. I think that's a green flag. If they're dismissive and not really answering your question, then yeah, maybe that's one tick in the column of maybe looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
Good point.
I agree.
Yeah. So when we think about blogs and doing your own research these days, as people say, if you're a patient kind of going online and trying to find answers, maybe we can talk a little about the different levels of research you can find out there.
Yeah, that's a really good. I wanted to ask this and I wasn't sure how. This is kind of a good segue. But like, as I'm thinking about teaching this course, I'm going to require them to go behind paywalls. So go into our library resources to find a lot of their, the systematic reviews, the meta-analysis, like the really high quality research. And it needs to be behind our library wall, because AI can't penetrate that. So that's going to require them to go in and, find it and like read it, synthesize it, and that got me kind of curious, because I am still a little bit ignorant on this point, but I'm just wondering, if you don't have access to those things, or you aren't paying for a journal or whatever the case may be, and you're just using open access articles, even though you can still get high quality articles doing that. But I don't know, is there still going to be a sense of, could AI be more relied on more heavily, or maybe less trustworthy in a sense? And does that question make sense? I'm just curious how that would end up panning out, like especially from a blog world.
You mean like if you were to ask AI to help you write a blog article?
Because if you're asking AI to help you write which I have no problem with, like AI writing an outline, or synthesizing the information that's already online and figuring out where the gaps are. Like, okay, great. That's really what it's intended for.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're asking it to write it for you and give you like citations that it can hallucinate if it wants to, that's a lot more iffy.
Yeah, you have to know the limitations of it for sure. And yeah, you're right. I see what you're saying. I think you're saying, like, if ChatGPT or any of these search engine reliant AI, if they only rely on what's available online, then they're limited by, because a lot of research articles are hidden by paywalls, or only research institutes or people who have memberships to them can get access to them. Then you're only relying on blogs. You're only relying on blogs and some research that's out there. And that means you're not getting a full picture.
That's more opinion pieces, really.
It's more pieces, yeah.
And I think it's such a good point. At the end of the day, it's such a good point for everyone to know that, like, AI is meant to it's meant to please you. It is meant to spit out what you are asking of it. It cannot critically assess all of the nuance and the different points. Like, it's going to spit out what you want. And it will fabricate. If it can't find something, it's going to fabricate it.
Yeah, and then if people do cite, I think it's always good to click on those citations too and just take a look at them. Even if you are not used to reading research, it's a good idea to look and see, does this actually link to what they're saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can find the basics of the article, not the full article, but maybe some conclusions or something like that. And you can sort of make a little judgment just to test and see. But I think it's just becoming one of those times where it's more and more important to be a little more skeptical and to be a little more critical thinking of, especially if something seems really out there. If it seems extreme, That's
Probably
definitely
is.
look at it deeper.
Yeah, I think Danielle, you and I were talking about that not too long ago with, oh gosh, she's on Instagram, like Dr. Jessica something.
Oh
And
yeah. Hmm.
yeah, and she's really helpful. But there was something on there that she was talking about, and she was just showing everyone like, okay, this person on Instagram made this really bold claim and used a study, had, pictures in the reel of the article and things like that, and was making a really bold claim. And she was like, but look, if you just scroll down and you only read the abstract or you only read like the conclusion, what she's saying is not actually true of the article, but she's banking on you not looking at it. She's banking on you just taking her at her word and saying, I'm referencing this article. So it's crazy. Like, people were doing that.
Yeah. I wonder how that has eroded trust too. Like, I think there's another camp of people who are just like, we can't even trust the research. Like, we need to rely on each other. Like, let's talk carnivore. Um,
Yeah.
like the carnivore diet. Yeah, which is essentially like, yes, when people point to the research, oftentimes it is opinion pieces and it's not substantial data or anything that's been published. And when there's not research being talked about, it's people sharing experiences, and which I think is it's so dangerous because we want to be able to trust one another and rely on each other and pass down stories. Like, that's in our DNA. Like, we're built for community and passing down information and all of that. But it does get trickier when that community is only online,
Yeah.
because you don't actually know if the person you're talking to is an actual person or a bot that's just commenting on stuff, or the same person with different usernames putting out the same stories. I think that is scary because it plays into one of our basic needs, which is, community.
That's a great point. Yeah. And I think one that kind of gets lost a little bit because we do tend to want to we want to believe the stories, or we want to trust whatever username we see. And that gets real muddy real fast. And we hear that all the time, like in inquiry calls or in our initial sessions. People are like, there's just so much out there. I don't even know what to believe or when to believe it or who to trust. And I hear that all the time, especially related to carnivore, like you were mentioning.
Yeah, it's interesting because you were the one that wrote the carnivore blog. When was it? Like 2020? Was it 2021? It was a long
It was a long
time
time
ago.
ago.
And that blog and the reel we did were just, it's one of the most, anything we do on that topic, it's the most viewed, was number one on Google for a while in that topic category. And we still, every single week, we get a comment on that. I turned off the comments and we still get a comment every single week from someone. It's a heated topic. People have a lot of feelings about it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like you were talking about with kind of mixing that piece of personal community, personal connection, personal stories, and passing those down, and those being so effective. And I feel like that's why on Instagram, that's why you follow the mommy bloggers. That's why you do it, and you trust what they're saying because they've done XYZ and it's similar, and you feel like you can trust them. And I thought it was interesting, even kind of going back and studying evidence-based practice, and you know, it's a three-legged whatever diagram, but part of us practicing evidence-based practice is not only the research that we have, but also our clinical expertise and our clinical judgment, and us kind of marrying that with personal stories and all of the things. And I think that's why that's why we're experts, but it's also why we can build trust with our patients too. We're not just relying on personal stories. We're not just relying on clinical judgment or just relying on literature. Like, we're marrying all of those things together to give you the best information that we have in a personalized way. And we're going to try to make it as easy as possible, and we're not going to over dramatize things or make things too good to be true. We're going to tell you the downsides. We're going to tell you the truth of what we know, the nuances of what we know. And I think that's what makes it good. is having all three of those things.
Yeah, that's really well said. That's a good point about personal stories, because that does come up a lot. Like when people reach out on inquiry calls, a lot of people know that we have IBD, and I always try to clarify. I mean, that's a relationary point, and it's what makes people feel comfortable because they know we get them and we don't have to explain it. But something that I will often find myself saying too is like, that doesn't qualify us to give you advice. That's not the one that doesn't qualify us. What qualifies us is our background and our licensure that holds us accountable, the commitment that we have to the licensure to honor that, our
Continuing
commitment,
education.
continuing education, research, us doing research, us looking at every angle for a patient, as a team. To me, that's the qualification portion. And the fact that we have it is a bonus. It's just like hey, you probably don't have to explain how bad it is because we understand to an extent how bad IBD can get. But I do think that's important too, to know the limits of your own personal story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we can see that exploited too online.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Yeah. Well, this was a really good conversation, and clearly we could talk about it for like a solid hour. We just kind of like vented about it for 30 minutes. So maybe we can give people a couple of tips. Be careful with what you read online.
Be critical, yeah. Be critical of what you see. And ask questions. Ask questions.
You know what? I think that is the number one thing, asking questions, because you can get a lot out of that. Just the questions alone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to everybody soon. Take care.